Hello, y'all, and welcome back to another segment here on Gems Podcast. For those of you that are new, I am the founder and host, Miss Genesis Amaris Kemp, and with me today in the hot seat is a special guest, Conny Graf. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about who Conny is, and we're going to dive into this amazing subject, which is needed. So, Conny Graf is a Swiss certified expert in finance and accounting and a certified clutter clearing practitioner. Connie helps people clear their clutter in their home, office, and finances, but not like most others. She says clearing clutter is an act of self love because the clutter we cling to keeps us stuck in life and busyness. We've all been there. It is more than just stuff, it's an indication and a symptom of what's happening with us emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. She strongly believes that clearing clutter is not just about purging and organizing, it's about exploring and releasing the limiting beliefs we tell ourselves, along with the stories and suppressed emotions that keep us stuck in the past. It's transformational, it's self development, and a journey that brings us up to date with who we really are and clarity about what matters most. So, without further ado, let's welcome the amazing clutter clearing practitioner, Connie Graf.
Thanks so much, Genesis. That's awesome introduction.
My pleasure, Connie. And so the audience, they love when we do the connection segment because it gives them a chance to get to know you in a fun and personal manner. So for
Mhm.
today's connection segment, there are two options you can choose from. We can either do an icebreaker or a rapid fire game. What are you in
Well,
the mood for?
let's do the rapid fire thing.
Here we go, y'all. We're playing rapid fire with Genesis and Connie. Do 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 do. Question numero uno. What is one word to describe you, Connie?
Ah, bold.
Question number two. If you could trade places with anyone for 24 to 72 hours, would you trade places or remain yourself? And if you trade places, with who?
No, I think I would remain myself. I have enough to do with me. Wouldn't want to trade. Thanks.
Question three. If money was no option and you just want an all expense getaway, where would you be headed?
Hawaii. I always wanted to go to Hawaii.
Question four. What is your favorite food or cuisine?
So I love pizza and actually all the Italian foods, but I eat very healthy, so it sometimes contradicts a bit.
Question five. Do you speak any other languages?
Yes, I do. So I'm originally from Switzerland. Learn I grew up Swiss German, which is not the same like German. And then in school I learned German and we had to learn French and I understand a little bit of Italian. Lucky for me, so I can read the menu.
I love it. And out of all those languages, which one is your favorite one to speak? And can you share one phrase so we could teach the audience something new?
One phrase in Swiss German, you mean?
Yeah, or any other languages you
Yeah.
speak.
So it's hard to say which one is the favorite. So because I live now in Vancouver and I speak mostly English, English is the one that is on the forefront. But in a way, it's probably the favorite language is still probably Swiss German because not that many people speak it. And you want to hear something in Swiss German? What shall I say? Ähm, Genesis, danke vielmals, dass du mich für den Podcast als Gast eingeladen hast.
Wow. Okay. Now, y'all, I normally put myself in the hot seat and I would repeat that, but that is hecka hard. So tell the audience what you just said, Connie.
Yeah, I just said thank you, Genesis, for inviting me as a guest on your podcast.
You're welcome. Or in Spanish, I will say de nada. So, question six. What's your favorite color, Connie?
My favorite color is probably turquoise blue.
Question seven. What is your drink of choice? Coffee, tea, or something else?
Coffee. Coffee all the way.
Question 8. You just won the lottery. Cha-ching, cha-ching. You must donate to 3 charities of your choice before your proceeds are released. What charities are you donating to?
Um, so most likely um, an animal, so horse rescue charity, probably some kind of a dog charity. I would have to figure out which one, and then something to the food bank. So we all have, everybody has something to eat. I think that's important.
I love it. Question 9. If you could have lunch or dinner with any person, past or present, who would it be and why?
With any person, I would probably take Bruce Springsteen. So I hope everybody knows Bruce Springsteen. It dates me a little bit. I listen to his music since I'm 12 years old, so I would probably want to go for dinner with him. I always say that I don't have a boss other than the boss, because if you know, his nickname is the boss. So that's who I would want to pick.
Love it. And question 10, it is our bonus question, and here are the rules. If you play, I ask one last question. If you pass, our roles are reversed, and you could ask me any question. So, do you want to pass or play?
Huh. I play.
Okay, last question. Name one crazy thing or adventurous thing that you have done in your life that actually built character.
One crazy thing. So I lived for 6 months in the winter at -40 in a house that had no power and no running water.
Oh, wow. That is crazy, y'all. Let's get Connie on Survivor because she definitely survived some inclement weather.
Yeah. Well, there was a wood stove, so it wasn't that cold, other than when you weren't home to feed the wood stove. But not having running water builds character, and you're very grateful for the faucet that you can just turn on afterwards.
I
So yeah.
love it. And audience, that just concludes our rapid fire game with Connie and the connection segment. So now we're going to move into the meat and potatoes, which is the main part of the segment. And we're going to talk about decluttering and why Connie calls herself the clutter clearing practitioner. So, Connie, what made you embark on this journey to declutter and look at it from a holistic level?
Mm. So I always joke and say I was a little bit of a weird kid. So I actually, when I was growing up, maybe 10, 12 years old, I was already decluttering. Just back then, nobody talked about decluttering. But I noticed early on that our environment has an effect on us. So I would kind of like declutter, reorganize, organize, and all that as a child. And then later, as I said, nobody talked about decluttering. So I was in finance. And so when I was in finance, I always helped people create how do you say that, a supportive environment on their desk. And so it's a longer story, so I'm trying to cut it short. So and then when I moved to Canada, my all my certificates for to be an accountant were not recognized anymore, and so I had to come up with something else. And I thought, well, actually, I'm really good at helping people create supportive environments, declutter, and everything. And so that's how I got back into what I actually was doing already when I was younger.
I love it. And who would have thought when you were younger, you already being in the decluttering process would have carried over into adulthood where now you're helping people do the same. And it seems like you do it year round, but why is it, from your opinion, that people only do it at the beginning of the year or as each season? Why can't we practice decluttering, all year long because sometimes we as individuals can be hoarder. Sometimes I like to hold on to things and now I'm like, is it a want or is it a need? So can you
Mm.
share from your experience on some of the things that you have done with your client to help them keep it as a sustainable habit versus a one-time thing?
Mm. Yeah, so the reason why people maybe do it only at the beginning of the year or just by season is because we are not really taught why we are keeping things, or we are not really taught how to declutter. So that's, and then in the media, of course, on the 1st of January, then everybody sets resolutions and goals and everything. Ta-ta! So then some people do start then, others start with spring cleaning. And I mean, yes, decluttering is kind of like spring cleaning on steroids, if you want to call it that way, you know. Um, but more sustainable is actually what I do and teach my clients, which is a few minutes a day keeps the chaos away, you know. And it's also it's healthier and more sustainable. It's like if you would only eat twice a year and the rest of the year you wouldn't eat. Or we could even go with other bodily functions, like if you would only go to the bathroom once or twice a year and the rest of the year your body would keep all the waste material actually from what you're eating inside the body. It would make you sick, no? And so this is kind of like the metaphor that I put out there. Like it's so much easier to constantly do it rather than these bursts of decluttering, and then when when you wore yourself out, then you just let it all go bad again, and then you start this burst again. It's very exhausting, and so it's actually much easier if you would do it on a continuous basis. Yeah.
Yes, and I could see that being easier because in the past I've done it like seasonally and that big push once a year, and it could
Yeah.
become overwhelming,
Yeah.
especially if you're seeing all of things that you have accumulated and the memories come up and you're like, "Oh, I remember when I got this and this is how it made me feel. Oh, I really need to keep it." And your spouse may be saying, "No, you really don't need to keep it," is what my husband will tell me. Put it in the trash or re-gift it or give it away. So I know you say clutter clearing is an act of self-love. So for anyone listening, can you help them understand why clutter clearing is an act of self-love and how they could begin to shift the paradigms and see it from your vantage point. And whenever they're seeing it from your vantage point, it could also help them build a new routine and a regimen where they're no longer hoarding stuff and they're saying, okay, if this is not serving me, then I need to either give it away, regift it, donate it, or just trash it.
Mm. So the way how you get there is by actually starting to pay attention how the environment makes you feel. This is kind of what came naturally to me when I was a child. And we are sometimes way too hectic or busy to actually really feel how the environment makes us feel. But if we would stop, we would realize that the environment, especially if it's cluttered and overfull with stuff and unorganized, that it stresses us out. And there is actually by now scientific studies out there that do confirm that we're getting very stressed out. And so this is one of the reasons why I say decluttering is self-love, because you're actually doing something for your physical health, because less stress is less stressful for the body, obviously. But I mean, a lot of today's health issues that people are suffering have a root cause in stress. And so if we can reduce the stress in our life, and the environment is, in my opinion, a very easy way to reduce the stress. We can't do anything to the outer world that just happens. We have no power, no influence over it, but we do have an influence over our immediate environment where we're living. And so when we reduce that stress, that will be very much in favor of our health, our mental health too, because we can just remember back when we're stressed out, how we react, also how we react towards other people, maybe towards our children. We know how we react when we're driving and we're stressed, So that's one of the reasons why I say decluttering is self-love, because it helps you mentally and it helps the people around you. It helps you physically to reduce the stress in your life.
Yeah, I could definitely see that now because it's like you're controlling what you can control, which is the
Yeah.
environment that you live in by
Yeah.
removing things that are no longer serving you or things that are crowding and cramping your space. And once you get rid of those things, you have clarity, you have focus, you have the visibility to see things because everything is not compressed and packed in tight spaces, and it's not
Mm.
hard for you to find certain items and whatnot. So, for example, if someone is listening in, Connie, and they're saying, okay, Connie, this sounds amazing. Genesis, I'm on board. I'm rocking and rolling with you all. But how do I get started? Because I have no idea where to start. What would you advise that man or woman or individual?
Mm. So I tell you first where not to start, because what most people do is they try to start with all the stuff that is most sentimental or where they have the most dilemma with. That's kind of where their brain first goes. They all think first like, oh my God, all my photos or um, all the toys or the clothes of my child who is now not a child anymore, or something like this. And my suggestion is actually that you don't start with these emotionally charged items. You start with the obvious stuff, or we could call it the low hanging fruit. So you go and you start with all the things that you kind of have an easy time to decide. It should come really easy, like, oh, I don't need this. Oh, I don't need this. Start with those. And we all have those, no matter how clutter free you say you're living. As human beings, we're collectors. That's our human nature. But it doesn't mean we have to collect forever. We can let go. And we always have things that we can let go. And so also, like, less emotionally charged areas are often, unless you're a avid cook or chef or whatever, often it's the kitchen or the bathroom or other rooms, or the linen closet, for example, or something. Start there. And then the other thing that I always say is too, is like, don't block off a whole day. Okay, next Saturday I'm gonna declutter. You probably don't want to do that. Who would want to declutter on a Saturday all day long? So just start small with maybe one shelf, or even just half a shelf or a drawer. And again, the minute it becomes like, oh my God, and I don't know, and what you mentioned before, oh, I remember these gorgeous times we had, and I don't know whether I can let go. Don't worry about those items yet. Just let go everything that is very natural. Oh, I don't need that. I don't need that. And let go of those. You start building your decluttering muscle. It's like when you go to the gym. You don't go and put the heaviest weight on the machine right away. No, you start small and you build up your muscle. It's the same here. So that's what I would say. And also, the more you start letting go of things, I'm not saying it becomes easier to let go emotionally charged items, but you will have a better understanding what you actually really want to keep and what is important to you and what not. And the goal is not to let go of all the emotional items that you cling on to. That's not the goal. The goal is that you actually surround yourself with the things that make you feel good, you know?
Yes, and if I could, piggyback off of that and let me know if you would agree with this advice or not. What I did recently was I started with my pantry because sometimes your pantry can become a cluttered spot. You have no idea what you're buying. You'll go to the store, you'll buy some milk, and you're like, dang, I have pasta sauce already. Why did I buy more pasta sauce? But if you declutter your pantry and you take out things that are expired, you trash it, You start to look at the expiration date of items. You could do the FIFO method, first in, first out. That way, you're not having things in your pantry that are going bad. And then you also have the visibility to see, okay, what is in my pantry and what do I need? And start making a shopping list. That actually helped me recently. And another thing I did was bills and mails and junk mail. Like here in the US, sometimes we get like sales papers, or sometimes they'll send you certain bills. But if you could take those paper copies of your bills and turn them into paperless, that's reducing, the carbon footprint, and you're also getting it electronically. So those paper things are not piling up wherever you store them in your house. Sales paper, do you know if you're trying to watch a budget, do you really want to see those sales papers that's nagging you and say, oh, there's amazing 50 to 70% off sale? Because you already know if you're trying to manage a budget for certain goals, you're like, oh, they're having a sale. Let me go shop. And you don't need to shop. You want to shop. So would you say those two areas are good to start with, Connie? Your
Yeah,
pantry and the other
yeah.
area?
Sure, I think it depends on the person. Is like for you, it probably makes most sense because you have your family knows, so you actually really have a pantry. Other people may not necessarily have a pantry. I would give one more tip with the pantry. So once you have it decluttered and at a certain organization, always when you buy new things, put it to the back so the stuff that is expiring sooner is in the front. And the papers is anyway, so it's like you're much younger than me, but when I was young, it was said that, oh, the computer will solve all our paper problems. We will have no paper anymore within, I don't know what the prediction was, but something around along the line of 10 years or so, we have zero paper. And it is now about 40 years later, and we have more paper than ever. So yes, definitely. Try to get rid of whatever paper comes into your house that you're not using, or find a use that is other than just looking at it and then going and buying things. There is some like some in some gardening techniques you can use papers, for example, if that's something that you could look into. But those are good things. And with the sales papers you were talking about, make sure you don't get them on your email afterwards because it's just as addictive to go and buy more things. Yeah.
Yes, and thank you for adding that tip. I love it. So that's FIFO, first in, first out. So I love that. And Connie, you also talk about the importance of decluttering spiritually, which also could tie into mental and emotional. So how can an individual declutter those thoughts that run rampant in their mind that is no longer serving them, and it's actually taking them away via distractions versus really tuning into who they are and what it is that they believe in, how they could show up and be whole and complete.
Yeah, how long do you have time? Because isn't that what we all struggle with? And I always joke and say, like, physical clutter is in a way so easy. No, it's mostly the mental clutter, and from the mental clutter comes the emotional clutter. And so, how can we get rid of mental clutter? I think so. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist or anything, but sometimes we really just think certain thoughts out of a habit or just forever and ever. And when we're actually going and listening in or paying attention what we're thinking, we're like, this is not even what I believe. It's kind of like it's what my mother said, or what some stranger said, or what my boss said that I didn't agree with, anyways, years ago, you know? So, um, really just questioning. And then the other thing is where I see a lot of people struggling with mental clutter is where we beat ourselves up. So, it doesn't help. Even if you have the most cluttered house that you believe you're the only one with the most cluttered house, it doesn't help if you beat yourself up over it at all. You need to find more compassion. You might need to or you need to ask yourself why is it so cluttered? Like I said, and why how you said in my bio intro, I believe there is a reason, or and I know there is a reason. We always found the reason when I was helping my clients. Why? And as soon as you understand why, you find more compassion for yourself. And again, it doesn't help if you try to beat yourself to declutter. It's much better to kind of find the reasons than maybe healing, I would say, is maybe a little bit too strong of a word, but just like find other ways how to deal with whatever it is and clean the outside. And I always say too, as within, so without, and vice versa. So if you start cleaning up your outside a bit, it also makes your mental state and your emotional state a bit calmer, and then it has an effect on the outside again, so it does help, but it's a long journey. I mean, we all suffer off from mental clutter for sure.
Yes, exactly. And one thing that I would like to say, audience, too, whenever it comes to the mental clutter, one tip that I learned from a mastermind is naming your ego. If you have a positive ego, what are
Hmm.
you naming that positive ego? In my case, I name my positive ego Positive Patty. My negative ego is Negative Nancy. So whenever Negative Nancy creeps in, I tell Negative Nancy to sit down and shut the puck up because positive Patty is here to stay and she has something important. So that's also me practicing discernment and asking myself, okay, is this thought positive or is it negative? Is it going to help me grow or is it going to distract and deter me from, seeing the good? And it is hard because we have things that are constantly probing at us that's altering our thoughts, whether it's the news, it's media, it's social media, it could be our surrounding, who we have in our circle, and etc. And whenever you are trying to go to a new level, new dimension, and etc., it's important for you to understand what level are you operating in and who is right there with you so you can ensure that your mental state and stability is going down the right path. So that's another tip that I would love to share with you all. It's not going to be overnight where things are going to change. It's a work in progress. So I tell you, be a whip without the H. Work in progress.
Yeah, I love that. Yes. And we can also ask ourselves whether it's serving us or not. Like, most of the time, that negative Nancy isn't serving us at all, you know?
Yes, exactly, Connie. So as we begin to wind down, Connie, is there anything that I have not asked you about Clutter Clearing Practitioner and the work that you're doing that you would love to share with the audience before we jump into the call to action?
No, I think it's just like paying more attention to it and being nicer to yourself. I think this is really the main message, and we got there. And to not overwhelm yourself, because clutter itself is already overwhelming, and when we're trying to take on too much, we overwhelm ourselves on top of the overwhelmment, which doesn't help at all. Yeah.
Yes. So, audience, whenever you're going through your decluttering process, because it's a process and a journey, make sure you have compassion, give yourself grace, look at your time. It is going to take time. And don't bite off more than you can chew, meaning don't take on more than you're able to handle. So that is where the grace is going to come into play because you're going to give yourself grace in order for you to go through this season and period of change, in order for you to make these sustainable life hacks and necessary moves so you could continue to do it over time and not make it a once and done type of thing. Now we're going to jump into the CTA call to action. Connie, what is your call to action to hold the audience accountable? They heard you spit your knowledge, but what's good is hearing the knowledge if they're not going to take what you lay down and apply it.
Yeah. So again, one of my sayings is a few minutes a day keeps the chaos away. So my call to action is find the minimum amount of time you can do something every day. And for some people, that is 15 minutes. And for other people, 15 minutes sounds already daunting. So then just take 5 minutes. But take that low threshold and say, okay, every day I do. Let's take 5 minutes. Every day I do 5 minutes, and 5 minutes could be quickly clear the counter of papers, like you earlier said, Genesis, or 5 minutes of looking in the pantry and getting out expired foods, something like that. And then, in order to not overwhelm yourself, after 5 minutes, if you feel like, oh, I'm motivated to do not more, then you can do another 5 minutes and just do it like this. That's what I would suggest is the call to action, that people actually start doing it. And you will find that it is less daunting if you just do a little bit. And we all find these that lower threshold, like 5 minutes or something. Maybe it's 10 minutes for you, whatever. And if it's just that long, it's also less, you're less tempted to procrastinate and say, oh, I do it later, or I don't do it today, or whatever, because we all have 5 minutes. Even if it's a hectic day, we find 5 minutes. And if you really are interested in making your life easier, and like I said earlier, love yourself a little bit better by reducing the stress, you find the 5 minutes, for example. So that would be my call to action.
I love it. And Connie, please give the audience your website, which of course has your social media channels backlinked on there.
Yes, so my website is connygraf.com. That is CONNYGRAF.com. Has all the information on it, the links to social media, the links to my podcast, how you get a hold of me. Everything is right there.
So there you have it, audience. Thank you so much for listening to this amazing segment with Connie and I. And we can't wait to hear how you declutter your life on a holistic level, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. All it takes is you making the move and continuing to make moves. Make sure you like, comment, follow, and subscribe. The podcast is over on 40 plus platforms. You could also see the recording video on YouTube by going to Gems with Genesis Amaris Kemp. And lastly, but not least, we are looking for brand sponsors and listener supporters. It is paid because it does take monetary resources to fuel the mission and movement, which is to bring content that is educational, inspirational, and motivational, while also weaving in DEI and B, which is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. It takes all of us coming together to make this world a better place and to leave an impact and an imprint. So until the next guest, next segment, peace, love, and lots of blessings. Remember, you're an asset, not a liability. You were created on purpose for a purpose. So go out and be great. Connie and I are rooting for you.